Have you ever given thought to how people are publicly identified? You may think of common relational descriptions like husband, wife, mom, dad, brother, or sister. But what about famous people and public figures? In our culture, we often identify people by titles, like Bill Gates, the founder and CEO of Microsoft, or Joe Biden, the President of the United States. Or if you like sports, we all know, whether we like it or not, that Tom Brady is the GOAT. These titles identify specific individuals and tell you something important about them. In the culture of Jesus' day, people were identified in much the same way, and Jesus makes reference to this in Matthew 22:41-46. While some Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus decided to ask them a question. What do you think about the Christ, and whose son is he? And the Pharisees rightly answered, well, the Christ is the son of David, the former king of Israel. And Jesus responded by quoting David from the Psalms. And in the quoted passage, David refers to the Christ directly as my Lord. So Jesus asked them a second question. If David calls the Christ my Lord, how can the Christ be his son? And Matthew records for us that none of them was able to answer his question. Well, today I want to pose the same question to you. Who is the Christ, and whose son is he? Jesus claimed, and his followers believed, that he was the promised Messiah, the Christ, the Son of God, sent to bring salvation and life to his people, which he purchased by his blood on the cross and guaranteed by his bodily resurrection from the dead. In essence, he is Jesus the Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Can you fathom the weight of the titles Jesus possesses? Well, there was a very well-known pastor in Memphis who I believe understood the weight of Jesus' claims, and here's what he said about it. It is an indisputable historical fact that a man named Jesus of Nazareth was crucified under the order of Pontius Pilate at the request of the Jewish religious leaders of the time, and that he was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. Jesus claimed to be God, and when he would not recant his claim, they put him to death. The only question that remains is this: was Jesus in fact who he claimed to be? And that's the question we all must answer. What will we do with Jesus, who is called the Christ? As Dr. Rogers said, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then nothing really matters. But if Jesus did rise from the dead, nothing but that really matters. Who do you say Jesus is? Your answer to that one simple question will resound forever. Change begins in you.
The Change Begins in You is brought to you in part by Piggly Wiggly of Collinsville, Patrick Allen Companies, Mitchell Tire and Wrecker in Collinsville, and Mowdy Cabinetry.